Excuse me, sir, but I think you're in the wrong place. The voice was young and smooth, with too much confidence. It cut through the quiet sounds of the Oak Barrel Diner, a place with old booth seats and the nice smell of coffee and fried onions. Thomas Miller, 84 years old, did not look up right away. He took a slow sip from his thick coffee mug. The warm cup felt good in his old wrinkled hands. He sat alone in a booth that could fit 4 people. The young man was a college student with messy hair and an expensive sweatshirt. He cleared his throat louder this time. "Hello, sir. This is our table." Finally, Thomas raised his head. His eyes were clear and steady, the color of a cloudy sky. He wore a dark blue VFW jacket that was soft and worn from many years. On the front pocket, a row of small medals shined under the bright lights. A matching blue hat sat perfectly on his silver hair. He looked at the boy, then at the 3 friends standing behind him with mean smiles. "Is your name on it?" Thomas asked. His voice was low and rough. The boy's smile got tighter. "Funny. No, but we come here every Tuesday. Everyone knows this is our spot. Now, are you going to move or do we have a problem?" The boy's friend, a tall kid named Kevin, leaned in. "Yeah, Pops, time to leave. The early dinner special ended hours ago." The third person, a girl named Jessica with a phone already in her hand, pointed it at Thomas. "This is perfect," she whispered to her friends. "Some old guy thinks he can just sit anywhere. It's like he thinks he's special." Thomas Miller said nothing. He simply put his mug back on the plate with a soft sound. His eyes stayed calm and steady. He had faced enemy soldiers in the freezing cold of North Korea. A few rude kids with mean words were nothing to him. But the unfairness of it, the mean treatment, hung in the air. The quiet respect of the old soldier was like a mirror, and the students did not like what they saw in it. So they decided to break it. The fight grew bigger, like a stain spreading. The leader, who had told the manager his name was Chad, felt everyone in the diner watching him. He thought they liked what he was doing. He kept going. "Look, old man," Chad said, putting his hands on the table and leaning close to Thomas. "I don't know if you're confused or just stubborn, but this booth is for paying customers who are going to order more than just 1 cup of coffee for 2 hours." Thomas's eyes moved to the half-full coffee pot the waitress had left on his table. "She said I could have the pot," he said simply. "I am a paying customer." "That's not the point," Kevin said, his voice shaking with nervous energy. "The point is, you're taking up space. This is a business. We're regulars. We support this place." Jessica, still filming, zoomed in on Thomas's face. "Are you a veteran?" she asked, her voice making fun of him. "Is that what the little costume is all about?" "My grandpa was in the Army. He doesn't walk around in an outfit trying to get free coffee." The word costume hung in the air, ugly and sharp. A few other people in the diner moved uncomfortably in their seats. A husband and wife in the next booth turned their backs, trying to look at their menus. The waitress, a young woman named Brenda, stood near the kitchen door, wringing her hands. She didn't know what to do. Chad saw the manager, a young man named Mr. Henderson, who looked barely older than the students, come out from the back office. "Hey, manager," Chad called out, waving him over. "We've got a problem here." Mr. Henderson hurried over. His tie was crooked and he had sweat on his forehead. He was a man who hated arguments, and his diner was now the stage for a really bad one. "What seems to be the problem, folks?" he asked. His eyes moved between the bossy students and the calm old man. "The problem," Chad said, pointing at Thomas, "is this guy. He's been here forever. He's making my friends uncomfortable, and he won't give up our table." He was staring at me. "It was creepy," Jessica added, lowering her phone for a moment to look scared and upset. The lie was mean and planned to get what they wanted. And it worked. Mr. Henderson's weak courage fell apart. He turned to Thomas, his face begging. "Sir," he began, his voice soft and sorry. "I'm so sorry, but these young people are regular customers. Would you mind if I moved you to one of the counter seats?" Thomas looked at the manager, then at the happy faces of the students. He had survived terrible battles. He had carried his hurt sergeant 2 miles through deep snow. He would not be pushed around a diner by a boy who didn't know how to tie a tie properly. "I am quite comfortable here," Thomas said. His voice was quiet but strong. "I will be leaving soon. There is no need for all of this." This quiet no was seen as a fight. "Unbelievable," Chad yelled, throwing his hands up. "The nerve! Henderson, are you going to do something or not? We'll take our business somewhere else." I'll make sure to mention your veteran harassment on Yelp. The threat of a bad online review was the final push for the worried manager. His face got hard with fake power. Sir, he said, his voice now stronger, I am the manager of this place. I am asking you to leave this booth. You can move to the counter or you can leave. The diner had grown quiet. The sounds of forks and quiet talking had faded away. Everyone was watching. Thomas felt the weight of their eyes, the pain of being embarrassed in public when he didn't deserve it. He slowly reached into his jacket's inside pocket and pulled out an old leather wallet, getting ready to pay for his coffee and end this. As Jessica raised her phone again to record him leaving, she zoomed in on the row of medals. Seriously, what are those for? She said meanly. Perfect attendance? She pointed a finger with painted nails at the one in the center, a silver five-pointed star. What about that one? Did you win it at the state fair for best pig? As her words hit him, the sounds of the diner seemed to change and fade for Thomas. The shine of the light off the silver star on his chest suddenly became the bright white flash of a bomb exploding in the snow. The smell of old coffee was replaced by the sharp metal smell of gunpowder and frozen ground. He wasn't in the Oak Barrel Diner anymore. He was on a lonely, windy hill in Korea. The screams of men echoed in his ears. He could feel the memory of a young Marine, a boy from Ohio named Miller, over his shoulder. The boy was bleeding. His breathing was rough and shallow. The star wasn't just a piece of metal. It was the weight of that boy's life. The memory of a promise made in a storm of bullets. The memory lasted only a second, but it made him stand straighter. He would not be shamed. He would not be broken. Not here. Not by these children. Across the diner, tucked away in a corner booth, a man named Frank Kowalski had been watching the whole thing with a slow-burning anger. Frank was a 45-year-old salesman dressed in a nice suit, but for 20 years he had worn a different uniform. He had been a master sergeant in the United States Marine Corps, and he recognized the look in the old man's eyes. It was a look of great patience, the kind you only learn when you've lived through things most people couldn't even imagine. When Mr. Henderson gave his final order, demanding that Thomas leave, Frank knew he had seen enough. This was no longer just rude kids and a weak manager. It was wrong. He quietly pulled his phone from his jacket pocket, keeping it below the table. He didn't dial 911. He scrolled through his contacts to a name few regular people would have. Sergeant Major Thorne. The phone was answered on the first ring. Thorne! The voice was pure gravel and power. Sergeant Major, it's Frank Kowalski, Frank said. His voice was low and urgent. The years of military training snapped back into place. Kowalski, good to hear from you. What's wrong, sir? I'm at the Oak Barrel Diner off Route 9, Frank said, his eyes fixed on the scene. Thomas was now slowly, painfully pushing himself out of the booth. There's a situation here. An old gentleman, VFW jacket, military hat. He's got a bunch of medals you could see from far away. There was a pause on the other end. Describe him. 80-something, silver hair, steady as a rock, even with these punks screaming in his face. Sir, I think it's him. I think it's Miller. Thomas Miller. The silence on the line was heavy, complete. Then Thorne's voice returned, with no friendliness, cold and hard as stone. Are you certain, Kowalski? The silver star is in the center of his medal, sir. It's Gunny Miller. I'm sure of it. And they're throwing him out. A bunch of college kids and the manager. They're making him leave right now. Stay there, Master Sergeant, Thorne commanded. The use of Frank's old rank was not a suggestion. It was an order. Do not get involved. Do not let him leave if you can help it. I am handling this. We are 5 minutes away. The line went dead. Frank Kowalski slipped his phone back into his pocket. He took a deep breath. Help was coming. The call ended in a neat, organized office at the Marine Corps recruiting station 2 miles away. Sergeant Major Marcus Thorne, a man whose presence seemed to fill any room, stood up so fast his heavy chair shot backward and hit the wall. His face was a thundercloud of shock and anger. A young corporal sitting at a nearby desk looked up, startled. Everything all right, Sergeant Major? Corporal, get the CO on the line now. Thorne's voice wasn't a shout. It was a low blast that made the pens shake in their holder. And get a car ready. 2 vehicles, 6 men, dress blues. They have 90 seconds to be in the parking lot. Go. The corporal, trained to react, not to question, was already dialing. As the phone rang, Thorne walked to the window, his jaw tight. The CO's voice, sharp and professional, came through the speakerphone. "What is it, Thorne?" "Sir, we have a code situation," Thorne said, using an old unofficial term for a legend in trouble. "Not a real one, sir. A personal one. It's Gunny Miller. Thomas Miller." The silence from the CO was deep. Every Marine knew the name. They knew the stories. Thomas Ironheart Miller was not just a veteran, he was a hero. "My God," the CO breathed. "Where is he?" "At the Oak Barrel Diner on Route 9, sir. Being picked on by regular people. They're trying to throw him out as we speak." "What do you need, Marcus?" "With all respect, sir," Thorne said, his voice ringing with complete belief, "this is not a request. This is a matter of honor. I am taking 6 of our best men to help a hero. We're going now." "Understood, Sergeant Major." The CO's voice was fired up. "Get our man." Back in the diner, the final act of embarrassment was playing out. Thomas had managed to get to his feet. His old bones hurt with the movement. The shame of the situation had settled on his shoulders, making him seem smaller, more weak. He carefully placed a $5 bill on the table, more than enough to pay for his coffee. His movements were slow, careful, a last stand of respect against the laughing group of young people. Chad, puffed up with his win, wasn't happy to simply let him leave. He needed a final public show of power. He stepped directly in Thomas's way, blocking his exit from the booth. "See?" Chad said with a winning sneer. "Told you this wasn't the place for you. Maybe try the VA hospital cafeteria next time, Grandpa. They probably have Jell-O." Jessica, her phone back up and recording, giggled. "This is going to be my most watched story ever," she whispered to Kevin, who was nodding. Hashtag Boomer gets owned. Thomas looked at the boy blocking his way. This child who had never known a day of real hardship, who thought being mean was being strong. He didn't say a word. He simply got ready to step around him. It was at that exact moment that a low, powerful rumble began to shake through the diner's floor. It started as a deep humming, a bass sound that grew steadily stronger until the spoons on the tables began to rattle. Every head in the diner, including Chad's, turned toward the large front windows. 2 shiny black SUVs, the kind used by government officials and important people, had pulled up directly in front of the diner. Their engines purred with controlled power. They weren't police cars, but they gave off a power that was far more scary. They blocked the entire street, making other cars slow and stop. Then, in perfect, scary unison, the doors of both vehicles opened. 6 men got out. They were not just men, they were visions of military perfection. 6 United States Marines, standing perfectly straight, dressed in the beautiful glory of their dress blue uniforms, the deep blue of their jackets, the clean white of their belts and hats, the blood-red stripe on their pants. It was a sight of such amazing discipline, it seemed to silence the world. The sun shined off the polished brass of their buttons and the mirror-like shine of their shoes. They moved without a word, forming a perfect formation on the sidewalk. Their faces were blank and hard as stone. Leading them, stepping out of the front passenger seat, was Sergeant Major Thorne. The bell above the diner door jingled, a silly, happy sound in the suddenly tense air. Sergeant Major Thorne entered. His 6 Marines followed in perfect step. Their heels clicked on the floor with the exact rhythm of a funeral drum. They formed up just inside the entrance, a living wall of honor and fear. The entire diner was frozen. Forks were held halfway to mouths. Talking died in throats. Jessica's phone shook in her hand. Thorne's eyes, cold and sharp, looked around the room. They passed over the scared face of Mr. Henderson, ignored the staring customers, and slid over the pale, confused faces of Chad and his friends as if they were worthless pieces of furniture. Then his eyes found Thomas Miller. The hardness in the sergeant major's face melted away, replaced by a look of deep, almost holy respect. He walked across the diner. His path was straight and true. He stopped about a foot in front of Thomas. He clicked his heels together. His right hand snapped up to his forehead in a salute so sharp, so perfect, it seemed to cut the air. "Gunnery Sergeant Miller," Thorne's voice boomed, a parade ground command that filled every corner of the silent room. On behalf of the Commandant and the entire United States Marine Corps, we apologize for the delay. We are here to give you your ride, sir. Thomas, surprised, automatically began to straighten his back. The years of training kicked in. As Thorne held his salute, one of the young Marines from the group stepped forward, stopped, and began to speak. His voice was clear and formal, reading from a script burned into the heart of the Corps. Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Ironheart Miller, the Marine announced. His voice rang with pride. 22 years of active service. Veteran of the Battle of Chosin Reservoir. Recipient of the Silver Star for amazing bravery in action against an armed enemy. Recipient of 2 Bronze Stars with valor for heroic actions. Recipient of 3 Purple Hearts for wounds received in action. The diner was completely still. You could have heard a napkin drop. Jessica's phone had lowered. The mean look on her face was replaced by a mask of horrible understanding. Chad's face was pale. His jaw hung open. He looked from the saluting Sergeant Major to the old man he had called a costume wearer. For the first time in his life, he seemed to understand the idea of a mistake from which there is no coming back. The young Marine continued. His voice did not waver. Sir, your legendary actions on Hill 1282, where you held the line against huge enemy forces for 72 hours straight after your officers were hurt, directly saved your entire group of soldiers. Your story is still required reading for all officer candidates at Quantico. It is an honor to be in your presence. Sergeant Major Thorne slowly, carefully lowered his hand. He kept his eyes locked on Thomas. A silent message passed between 2 generations of warrior. Then he turned his head just enough for his look to fall on Chad, Kevin, and Jessica. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His quiet anger was more scary than any shout. You, he said. His voice was a low growl that promised terrible results. You stand in the presence of a living legend. A man who walked through fire and bled in the snow so that children like you could have the freedom to sit here in a warm diner and throw insults you are too ignorant to understand. He took a half step toward them. The uniform you called a costume is proof of a life of honor, courage, and commitment that you will never know. The medals you made fun of were paid for in blood, sacrifice, and the kind of bravery you can't even understand. His icy look then moved to the manager, who seemed to be trying to shrink into the floor. And you, Thorne said, his voice dripping with hate, you allowed this to happen in your place. You should be ashamed. Thomas, who had watched this all happen with a tired sadness, finally spoke. He placed a shaking hand on the Sergeant Major's powerful arm. Easy, Sergeant Major, he said. His voice was soft. They're just kids. They don't know any better. He turned his faded blue eyes to the 3 students, who were now huddled together like scared sheep. He looked at them, not with anger, but with a deep, aching pity. Freedom isn't free, he told them. Remember that. And respect. Respect costs nothing at all. As Thomas's hand rested on his own jacket, his fingers brushed against the cool metal of the Silver Star. The touch sparked another flicker of memory, a flash of the truth behind the honor. He saw it with perfect clarity. A frozen night in Korea. The world lit only by starlight on the snow and the distant, terrifying bloom of bombs. He saw himself, a young man pressing a bloody bandage into the side of a wounded Marine, a boy from Ohio who couldn't have been more than 18. He was protecting the boy's body with his own as enemy machine gun fire tore through the air above them, singing its deadly song. He could still hear his own young voice, rough and desperate. Stay with me, son. Just stay with me. The medal wasn't for the fighting, it was for that moment. It was for Miller. Let's go, Gunny, Sergeant Major Thorne said gently. His tone shifted from iron to soft as he spoke to Thomas. We'll take you wherever you want to go. One of the young Marines stepped forward and respectfully pulled Thomas's chair out for him. Another walked to the table and placed a crisp $100 bill on top of Thomas's 5. For his coffee, the Marine said to the shocked manager, and for the trouble. They formed a protective honor guard around the old veteran, a wall of dress blues, and walked him toward the door. As they passed, the customers of the Oak Barrel Diner, as if moved by a single unspoken command, began to rise from their seats. A man in a business suit, a family with 2 small children, the couple who had turned away, they all stood. As Thomas Miller, the humble hero, walked out of the diner, A soft, then growing wave of clapping filled the room. In the weeks that followed, Jessica's video never went viral the way she had hoped. Instead, a video taken by another customer of the two black SUVs, the six perfect Marines, and the thunderous salute spread across the internet like wildfire. The university gave a formal apology, and the three students became local outcasts. Their faces became a meme for entitled ignorance. The Oak Barrel Diner changed too. A few days after the incident, a new professionally printed sign appeared in the window. All veterans and active duty military receive a 25% discount. Thank you for your service. About a month later, Thomas was in the canned goods aisle of the local grocery store, trying to decide between creamed corn and whole kernel. He heard a nervous voice behind him. "Mr. Miller, sir." He turned to see Chad, the ringleader. The boy was wearing a grocery store apron and a name tag. The mean confidence was gone, replaced by a deep, hollowed-out shame. "Sir," Chad stammered, unable to meet Thomas's eyes. "I just wanted to apologize for that day. I was an ignorant fool. What I did was... There's no excuse. I'm sorry." Thomas Miller looked at the young man for a long moment, studying the real regret in his face. He saw not the mean bully from the diner, but a boy who had been forced to learn a hard lesson. He gave a single slow nod of his head. "I know," he said. His voice was soft. Then he turned back to the shelves, picked up the can of cream corn, and placed it in his cart. Raymond Clark's story is a powerful reminder that heroes walk among us every day, often in the quietest, most unassuming forms. If you were moved by this story of valor and vindication, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and subscribe to our channel Stories 4.